Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give it just another minute to allow some other folks to join. As we do that, if you could go ahead and drop in the chat your name, role, and location, and the emoji that you think represents how you feel when you think about data technology and using data technology for student success data analysis and student success systems. All right. Thank you, Ross and Aaron, Alana, Maritza, Annika. So I know we've got a lot of new folks today, so I will go ahead and start by introducing myself. I am Marie Husby Slater. I am the coordinator for the Student Success District Network. I was almost done putting in the chat. I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And my emoji is kind of a frustrated one because as a coach, I have always felt like today's topic is one area that I've never been able to support my schools and districts as well as I would have liked. I am not a technologist. And because every district uses a different system and how you have that platform set up and what you're doing with it right now is all going to impact how you interact with it. I think everyone I've ever worked with has asked me a question about configuring their student information system or getting the best data out of it. And I've never felt like I have been able to answer those questions as well as I would like and as well as I think a lot of folks would like. I think this is a pretty common pain point for a lot of folks. So we're going to go ahead and get started and jump in here. I see a lot of our emojis are kind of like wondering faces. Some surprises, some thinkings. So we're going to do some thinking now about, apologies, there we go. Leveraging student information systems to support student success teams. So just real quick to make sure everybody knows where they are and why they're here. We are part of the Grad Partnership for Student Success. This is a group of about a dozen organizations that have come together to create a partnership supporting the development and use of high quality student success systems. We do this through a variety of forms of technical assistance and support, including this network for district implementation teams. The Student Success District Network was born out of a couple years of work that we did convening folks in person, where we just consistently heard we want to be able to have conversations more frequently than once a year. So this is a network for district teams that is meant to help build peer learning and networking, gain access to tools and resources, and to help contribute to a national dialogue related to student success systems, and for individuals and teams participating to expand and deepen their own network. Today's session is mostly focused on those middle couple of bullets where we're going to be talking about a recent resource and how that recent resource is feeding into an upcoming resource. And that today's session is in part your opportunity to hear and learn from what has been done and then help to influence what comes next. So we have 4 basic sections to our agenda today. I'll begin with some brief opening remarks to help kind of set the stage on student information systems and student success systems and the work that we've done at Grad Partnership related to those. And then I'll be handing it off to my co-facilitators for today, talking about pain points that districts commonly experience in doing this work, how to leverage the experience of one district in leveraging student information systems to support their success teams. There's too many S's today. but I'll get through it the best I can. And then we'll end with that discussion of looking at what is this upcoming resource and providing you all an opportunity to reflect on that kind of progression and relationship and provide us with some of your thoughts about how to move that forward. So, with that, today we have a very large team. I am so excited to introduce you to my co-facilitators today. From Digital Promise, I am joined by Sierra and AJ. Sierra and AJ, if you want to wave real quick, they'll introduce themselves a little bit more in a few minutes. And then from Lowell Public Schools in Lowell, Massachusetts, Lowell, Massachusetts, there are really too many S's. We are also joined by Lauren. Lauren, if you want to wave and say hi. So thank you, ladies, all for coming today and joining us and co-facilitating today's session. All right. We like to start every session with just a quick reminder of our community norms here in the district network. I won't read all of these to everyone, but I will just leave them up for a minute to make sure we each have a chance to kind of go over them. And remember that this is about building a peer network and community. And so we are here to engage in dialogue and learning together. All right, and so with that, I will go ahead and move into kind of opening our session. So, I'm sorry, excuse me. High quality student success systems rely on four essential components or essential elements, which are, if you've been around with the grad partnership work for a while, strong and supportive relationships, shared mindsets, holistic, real-time actionable data, and strategic improvement actions. Holistic real-time actionable data includes research-based predictive indicators like attendance, behavior, and course performance, as well as information about student well-being, belonging, school connectedness, and insights from teachers, school staff, students, families, and caregivers. Data sources and considerations impact all of the components of a student success system. But the relationship to strategic improvement actions in particular is central to the theme for January and our conversation today. This element highlights the role that data systems play in not only making these critical data available, but also the impact that data technology has on student success teams and their ability to act on those data and make decisions. Student success teams use data regularly and in a variety of ways. Data needs span multiple audiences, include different types and sources of data, and require various levels of granularity. Teams need effective systems, and those effective systems, in part, display the data. They help organize the data, help them understand current conditions, and design so the team can design and implement interventions that create the most benefit for the most students. Data systems, thus, play a key role in the overall function of student success work. In addition to being a central warehouse for critical data, they help organize those data, provide data views, and help teams make sense of the data so it can be useful information. Effective use of real-time actionable data requires a data system or infrastructure that allows teams to turn individual pieces of data into actionable information. For example, teams use these systems to identify trends over time and identify groups of students who would benefit from intervention. Data are used to help the team answer questions like how many students are both failing math and chronically absent, so they can act on those data in the most effective way. Data systems should help provide information and responses to questions that help a team not only identify individual student needs, but also so that the team can have a greater impact, they need to be able to identify groups of students who can be helped collectively. Advances in technology and student information systems have increased the amount of data available significantly. Uh, and that data is frequently and essentially used in student success systems. But these developments haven't always focused on providing teams with the flexibility and improved understanding needed for the complex work of student success teams. In many ways, the technologies that once pushed forward data use in education are now in a position of catching up to the next generation of district implementation. As one example, teams are often aware of the importance of not only the established evidence-based predictors like attendance, behavior, and course performance, but also increasingly the underlying conditions related to student agency, student belonging, and connectedness. While agency, belonging, and connectedness can all be measured, not all student information systems have gotten to the point of finding ways to integrate those data seamlessly to facilitate student success teamwork. So the grad partnership has done some work to help us understand what this means and what this looks like, including looking at challenges for districts and schools related to data use and student success system work. A nationally representative sample of middle and high school principals during the 24-25 school year found that integration is a challenge to effective student success system practices. Only 1/5 of principals reported that a single data system supplies all the data they need for their school's student success work. And the vast majority of principals identify integration challenges as a primary issue in their effective data use. The survey results further show us that we need to understand and address opportunities for improving these existing data systems. We know from our work with districts that data often exists, but the systems where the data are housed don't necessarily speak to each other, don't always have the same access, and how to get them to work together isn't always clear to people. Or the reporting options within comprehensive systems like student information systems aren't set up to accommodate the level of ongoing need for a student success team. We know there's been this persistent tension between technology and practice really for more than 20 years now, where advances in the field lead to new questions and challenges, which technology then needs to respond to. And then the cycle continues. Technology advances, and that leads us to be able to ask new questions and try new things. So it's with all of this in the front of mind that Grad Partnership is working to leverage data technology platforms for student success team use, and why we chose this theme for January. We understand the challenges related to advancing SIS within student success systems are greater than we can solve or fully dive into in an hour session. Our goal with our January theme is to provide an opportunity to bring our district members into the ongoing dialogue to address these challenges, to help ensure that future development continues to move in a helpful, responsive direction, and hopefully for you to be able to go back to your own team with some new ideas and reflections that relate to your own work. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to our colleagues from Digital Promise, who have been leading this important work with Grad Partnership on understanding the challenges that districts are facing related to SIS, as well as identifying great examples of district innovation in the data system space and continuing to move that forward. So with that, Sierra, I will hand things over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marie. And thank you all for being here today. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. As just a quick refresher, my name is Sierra Noakes. I'm the Director of EdTech Policy and Standards at Digital Promise, and I'm joined with my teammate AJ Foster, who's our project manager. Today, we're going to share a bit about some of the work we've done so far on a project and then brainstorm a little bit with you all what we can do to best support you moving forward. Awesome. Thank you. So, to begin in this work, our team started with a landscape study involving interviews with education leaders, educators, counselors, school and district staff, product teams. We really wanted to understand holistically across these systems what the major pain points were that are holding technology back from really helping our work. Through this research, we identified 9 consistent pain points. Some of these pain points are at a market level. So, for example, cost barriers, the best features are often at the most premium price points. For market volatility, um, every day, it seems there's some acquisition or merger going on. But many of these challenges represent opportunities for districts and schools to improve their existing infrastructure around student success. By doing so, we are hopeful that this will enable educators to optimize technology use and focus more of their time collaborating with peers in their buildings and then working with students directly. So, for example, data quality was a consistent challenge. This included communities not having established protocols for when data should be entered into their student information system, on what cadence, defining terms like tardiness. So, data consistently reflects the same threshold. When there are delays in data entry or challenges with validation rules, so for example, if the system's not catching errors like negative attendance rates, we know that this leaves districts and schools with unreliable data, often calling for time-consuming manual cleaning, but also losing precious time to get to at-risk students and make sure they're getting the supports they deserve. In another example, we talk through intervention tracking. Even in instances where there are strong data protocols in place, so teams can reliably pull the data they need to identify students and assign interventions to be most effective, many systems do not have documentation and monitoring in place to understand if the intervention was implemented with fidelity, and ultimately if the impact of the assigned intervention was what we would hope it to be. Because intervention data is remaining in silos, it creates gaps in understanding and learning and ultimately prohibits teams from building institutional knowledge about how to best support students. Um, a little deep on a couple of them, but to touch on the rest, fragmented data systems where folks are having to manually pull across systems and often in Excel sheets, pulling all that data together. Data access is a major pain point where the person doesn't have the right information to the or right access to the data that they need. Actionable data visualization. We heard a lot of folks saying they feel like they're drowning in data and they don't quite know how to make sense of it to drive next steps. Um, System customization. So often these tools come in and we have to adjust our systems to fit the system. We have to adjust our systems at the district level to fit some product system rather than vice versa. And then usability. A lot of these systems are very difficult and arduous to use, or querying is challenging. And then we can jump to the next slide. Now that we've had a chance to talk a little bit, we want to create some breakout space, and we'd love to hear from you. We'll have about 12 minutes, I believe. And in that time, we'd love in groups to hear which pain points are resonating with you. Are there other pain points that you experience that aren't included in those 9? And then what resources and strategies have supported your team in navigating those pain points?
All right, those breakouts are opening now, and everyone's getting randomly assigned to a group, so you should get a window popping up to join, and we'll see you again in a few minutes. All right, thank you everyone. I hope you had Though brief, a good conversation in that small group. And so, with that, I guess I'll give it just 1 second. If there's any reflections from the conversation that you want to share in with the larger group, please go ahead and put those in the chat now. You can continue to add those to the chat over the next couple of minutes. I'm going to hand it off to AJ now, who's going to continue talking about the work Digital Promise has been doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie, and thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. I know that you all kind of talked a little bit about some of these pain points that we addressed in our last couple of slides. But something that Digital Promise is doing, right, is we're actually co-designing kind of existing tools on the market, right, to improve some of these experiences of district and school teams. So recognizing that there are gaps in market tools, right, that you all are procuring. One thing that we're doing is trying to take a more active approach through co-design and co-designing solutions with a mass coalition of districts. And you'll see some of those districts identified in green here. So Bellevue, Portland, Oakland, Garden Grove. We're in Durham as well as Warwick. And so this is our first cohort, and we're really, really excited about the work and kind of the learnings that we've been getting from some of these district leaders as well. Next slide, we can kind of talk about again, like how are we really making this happen? And so really, again, like I said, tearing down walls between districts and product developers. In our small group, we kind of talked a little bit about how district leaders are really resilient, right, and really resourceful, and they can find workarounds. But some of that onus is on product developers as well. And so kind of getting everybody in the room to tackle like this disconnect between what software can do, right? And then what districts actually need it to do. And so we start with root cause analysis, right? So asking hard questions about why a tool just isn't hitting the mark. From there, we move to kind of just collaborative product road mapping. And this is kind of where, again, district leaders are getting a seat at the table to really design future features alongside product developers and their teams. And from there, we kind of finish in this iterative design kind of session where we test against real world use cases, right? And so we talked about in our small group how some districts we might have a lot of access to our data, right, but it might be how are we receiving that data, and if we're able to get an automatic solution or an automatic kind of report about our student success teams. And so we're testing those against real use cases, right, to make sure that the end result actually works for you all. It actually works for your school environments, because what's the point of procuring a tool that doesn't really work for your school, but also doesn't work for your entire district? And so we can go to the next slide. And as I mentioned, right, it's not just about software, but some of those kind of technical capabilities that we've been seeing change since the duration of this project, right, is the inclusion of AI-powered MTSS recommendations. And so how are we using data in a safe way and uploading those to safe models to then give us information at a quicker rate, right? Tools are able now to customize dashboard metrics that districts are creating those filters. And so not assuming what a filter should be from the product side, but really asking district leaders, what do you need to see and how can we make this software, this student information system work for your use? And then the third, just to name a few, again, is high quality instructional material and content alignment to interventions, content alignment to state standards. So making sure we can upload our state curriculum and make sure that it actually works for our students, right? And it's actually aligned to our state standards. And so again, just to name a few technical capabilities that we have been working on with some of our products and our provider teams so far. And so we're excited really to kind of dive into, again, kind of just some of your feedback and what you all are thinking. But for now, I'll pass it to Lauren to kind of talk about what her district is doing and how they're really supporting this work with student support success systems. So thank you.
Thanks, AJ. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Campion, Lowell Public Schools, which is in Massachusetts. I'm the Director of Student Resources. Happy to be a part of this Student Success District network. I've learned a lot from this network, and I'm going to share just a really high-level overview on some of the applications of this work. And if anyone wants to, take the conversation further, happy to do that later. So you can go to the next slide. So before we get started, I just wanted to see a show of hands. Thinking about the idea of connectedness, which is the new, one of the new ABCs, agency belonging, connectedness. Um, how many of you have struggled with quantifying student connectedness or school connectedness? I know that I have. So that's pretty much what we're trying to do here is take something that, it is a little bit of a qualitative measure, but actually see tangible, quantifiable data using our student information system and a data visualization dashboard that connects to it. So we're going to start with talking about how our student success teams at the school level operate. And we always start with the people because no matter how good your data systems are, they're only as good as the users. So if your school staff don't feel comfortable with using the systems, if they haven't provided input, if there's, if you're fortunate enough to have customization abilities with your vendor, if the input hasn't come directly from the school staff, then there's always going to be a disconnect. So what we try to do is start at the people level. We follow the model that this network has recommended of having regular scheduled review of student data at each school. This is really driven by a really long history of our attendance office having a really refined system of reviewing students who are in different tiers of attendance. And then recently, in the past year or two, we've been able to expand to the rest of the ABCs. So integrating behavior and course performance and bringing it all together at like an overall risk through an early warning system that does a composite score of students' risk level based on their ABCs combined. It doesn't take away the work of those individual teams, like the attendance team or the behavior or SEL team at each school, or of course the academic intervention team. But we do ask schools to now, at least once a quarter, look at their overall risk data. So then you have below the indicator teams, like I mentioned, each individual um, kind of subgroup or indicator level analysis where you'll be running your attendance interventions or your behavior interventions, academic interventions based on math scores on our state assessment. And the whole goal here is to try to ensure that we're not just throwing different interventions at students, but they're really tailored to which type of support they might need. Some students might only need attendance support because when they're in school, their behavior is perfect and they're able to, keep up academically. But other students might have like kind of a low grade issue with multiple of these domains. They might be starting to slip with their attendance and their grades might be also reflecting that. And a lot of times I noticed, or we've noticed at the central office level that schools might be spending a lot of energy on students who are in tier 3 risk and not enough energy on students who are in tier 2 risk. So in that situation, this early warning indicator system that we created on the next slide, you can go on to the next one, has been helpful to make sure no students are slipping through the cracks because they're kind of at that lower level of risk. So the first step we do is try to identify who is disconnecting from school. And we use our vendor Open Architects, which is a data visualization vendor to see those red, yellow, and green tiers. That is, like I said, a composite of their chronic absence, their behavior incidents, and their course failures, specifically in math and English. And all of these are pulled from our student information system. I will mention we did try to work very hard with our student information system vendor to do these flags right in there, but we weren't able to ever get it to work. So we ended up pivoting to work with this vendor that we had already started to work with on other dashboards. So again, that's open architects. So once we identify who's disconnecting, schools can sort easily. They can see all their students in tier 2 risk or tier 3 risk, and they can see why they're disconnecting or why they're flagged. So I shouldn't say they can't see why, like let's say the reason is something that's going on at home, or an illness or something. That won't show up the why, but we can say how are they disconnecting? So is their attendance showing signs of disconnection? Is it their behavior or their course performance or a combination? Sorry, there's a typo there. So basically, we're going to group students by what type of support they need, and then each of the individual domain teams will be following up to provide the correct type of intervention. And go on to the next slide. And then the fun part is seeing, okay, what are we actually going to do once we've identified those students who are disconnecting? And this is where I mentioned that we've been able to start to quantify school connectedness. So school connectedness could be thought of as like how a student feels connected, or the level, the degree to which they feel connected to their school, which can be assessed in things like school culture and climate surveys, or a survey that might be specifically targeted to school connectedness as an indicator. But in this case, we can also use our Open Architects dashboard to see the actual tangible, quantifiable connections, as in what sorts of activities are students involved in? Are they involved in after school, before school, activities? Are they involved in sports? Do they have a mentor? Has the social work team gotten them into an SEL group? All sorts of things. We even can do like wraparound services. Has the family been connected with wraparound services? So we do this. The Open Architects vendor worked with us to create this bubble chart to visualize out of the whole school, in terms of each tier, what proportion of those students have we identified as having some sort of connection. And it's still very surface level. We're not able to see like, how strong is being involved in sports versus, having counseling at the school. But we are able to see at least a surface level, and you can see those unshaded students are ones that we don't have a connection logged for. And that's how our student support services staff at the school level, which usually is a social work team. We have the community school strategy in our district. So it could be the full-time community schools manager whose job it is to be the liaison for resources around the community that helps serve students and families. Or it could be a guidance counselor, it could be a group of folks at each school, but we do like to have multiple people who are looking at this type of data, because then they can see, oh, here's my caseload, those students who are unshaded in the tier 2 risk level or tier 3 risk level. We need to make sure we're addressing that and figuring out what type of interests they have, what type of needs they have, and then log a connection. And all of this is pulling directly from our student information system. So the school staff are logging journal entries. Sometimes there's a more automatic way of staff logging. Let's say all students who played sports this quarter, we can log them all at once using a batch journal upload to Aspen, which is our student information system. And then that gets pulled in real time to our dashboard. So that's pretty much that slide. If you want to move to the next one. Is there a next slide? Awesome. So yeah, so I think I'll take questions at the end, but the big takeaways of this is that we use the research, that came out in 2007 or 2008 from Dr. Balfons, and we said we got to use these ABC indicators somehow, but it took us many years later to actually develop this real-time early warning system with this vendor. And it was really useful to us, but it's only useful if people understand what they're looking at and how to use it. And then from there, once you identify the risk, we've been able to see also through our data visualization the level of connectedness of our students. So that's kind of our learning process in Lowell. And again, happy to share what we're doing as a follow-up later on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. We don't have any questions that have come in so far, but if you do have a question for Lauren or about what Lowell is doing, please feel free to drop that in the chat as we close things out, and we will do our best to come back to that. With that, I will hand it back to Digital Promise again. They're going to kind of wrap us up in the next 4 minutes or so. Oops, sorry. Before I close out the session.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're working on we identified those pain points and we've been spotlighting amazing districts like Lawrence that are building these great systems. We're working on building what we're calling a playbook to further widen the learnings and how to support folks in building out these infrastructures. So the tool will be organized to help build out student success teams infrastructures and especially how they're using technology. And it'll be embedded with actionable recommendations, resources, and templates. And we're aiming to launch it at ISTE this June. And if we want to go to the next slide. Right now, the way we're thinking about the structure is opening with actually beautifully to Lauren's point, like starting with what is success? What are the indicators we should really be focusing on? And what are our thresholds and cut scores for defining at risk so we can all be in alignment on which students we need to focus on and in which ways. The next section will be around creating that infrastructure. So developing a configuration plan to make sure the staff has access to the right information they need when they need it. And then the final portion will be around taking action. So finding ways to really create student groups, assigning interventions, and doing that intervention tracking and monitoring to see if that ultimately supports students as they deserve. I went through this very briefly, but we would love to get your thoughts on it. We can jump to that next slide. In the chat, please feel free to share. Take a minute to think if you need time. We'd love to hear from you. What are some ways that your SIS is or is not aligning with what you need for student success teams within this structure? So if we're thinking about like defining success, where could we be supportive? Creating infrastructure, there's specific pain points. In our breakout group, we talked quite a bit around like time is a pain point, and that is a definite one. But are there maybe protocols we could support you with including? And then similarly for taking action. So feel free to take just a minute and then we'd love to hear from you in the chat.
So I think what we want to do is we're going to pause for like 30 seconds or so. No one hit submit yet. We're going to do a waterfall. So just take a few seconds, reflect, add your thoughts to the chat, and then we'll say go. And then we've got one more question after this. We'll do the same. All right. And why don't we go ahead and if you've got that reflection, go ahead and hit submit and we'll see those start to come in and then we'll pull up the next question.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And for time's sake, do we want to jump to the next question?
Yes, so I will pull up that next question. So we're going to do the same thing, take about another 30 seconds or so. Sorry, we should probably say what the question is. Why don't you go ahead and do that, Sierra?
Sure. What is one thing that we should keep in mind while developing this resource to make sure it's helpful for your district's needs? And we can share our email addresses in the chat too. If anyone wants to reach out to talk more about what you need from this, or if you have ideas, we would love to hear from you.
going to go ahead and give it just about 5 more seconds and then hit release on that second set of responses. All right, let's go ahead and hit submit and we can see those come in before we close things out. All right, so just real quick, going back to our first question, I love the comment about the importance of consistent language across the district. I think that really, Sierra, goes back to your comment about like the tool is should be useful and helpful, but it's still just the tool. The people matter so much. The alignment of the system and vision and the functionality and accessibility of the system, and Lauren's comment about like getting personal support, right? Someone to hear your questions, to hear your pain points, to respond, and help come up with those solutions that are right fit for you. For our second question, we've got responses here about learning to use the data platforms and learning from other districts and how they're using their platforms and being successful with that. Measuring the impact of strategies in order to increase student connectedness. Yes. The balance between structure and best practice and guidance, and then having the flexibility and adaptability to learn from that and bring it into your own context. I think these are all fantastic, and thank you all so much for sharing. Lauren and Sierra and AJ have all dropped their emails in the chat. So if there is anyone who would like to follow up with them on additional questions or conversation, please feel free to reach out. And we're just about up against time, and I just have a few things to close us out. This is importantly, if you are not new to the district network, you may have noticed that we're changing things up a little bit. And part of that is going to be in what you see happening after today's session. So we're making a little bit of a shift to the way we're presenting our materials and providing them. So your snapshot is going to be really focused on implementation of this theme. So it'll be similar in that we're going to give you that description and summary of the theme. We're going to provide you resources that are aligned to today's presentation to help move that work forward. And then there's a new section on practice connection. So a reflection question to take back to your team and a next step or practice task to help take the concepts we talked about today and move them into your work. We know we went over a lot and we went over it quickly. And so this is to help you take that time to reflect and process and think about implementation. So with those changes, we have also released our schedule through the first half of 2026. Our next session and theme for February is Thriving Together, Strengthening Schools to Support Students with Disabilities. That will be co-facilitated with NCLD, the National Center on Learning Disabilities. The next 3 sessions and dates after that are listed on the slide. And I just dropped a link in the chat with the full schedule and the links to register for each of the sessions. So if you want to register for these, please go to our website. That's where you will find the registration link and information. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today, for your time, for your thoughts, for your work. And please share what you've heard with your colleagues, help us grow the network, and we'll see you again next month. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.